started with their sun hat. I just want to welcome everybody who's tuning in. I'm seeing a lot of names scrolling up. I'm on a whole bunch of different platforms at the moment. So no matter where you are, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me for day number 2 of my sun hat session. So we're making these cute sun hats. This one's reversible. Actually, I like to make things reversible. So a couple of the patterns I shared, actually I think 3 of the 4 patterns I shared on my little landing page that I created for this mini class are reversible. And then there's the 4th one that you could make reversible with a couple of little adjustments. So I like to do that. I like to have kind of different, I like to play patterns on each other. So, you know, when you wear this hat, you kind of see a little bit of the plaid on the inside when you have this beautiful African batiked print on the outside, and same goes for the other way. So anybody? Hey, it's so nice to see people. So I am it's noon right now, and I just want to kind of introduce myself again for anybody who's just joined. My name is Crispina French, and I am a textile recycling activist, entrepreneur, and artist. And today is day number 2 in a little mini class I put together called the Sun Hat Sessions. So we are making these cool upcycled, recycled sun hats out of fabrics that I'm sure everybody, the thing about the waste, this is the fabric, this is the stuff, right? This is an armload of fabrics that I found in my closet that we were not using in my household. And I have a way of collecting fabrics, as a lot of people who follow me do. So this is a great project if you have a fabric stash that you can't remember exactly what you bought that fabric for, but you have it and you love it. Maybe you have some clothing, shirts that have thin elbows. Maybe you have clothing that you've never worn and you're just really not sure what to do with it. So this is a great project for any sort of lightweight cottons, linens. You can even use like this hat. The sample's made out of a beautiful linen upholstery fabric, a little heavier weight. So the sky's the limit. We talked about material gathering yesterday, but I just want to reiterate that there is no need to feel like you don't have fabric in your life already that's suitable for this project. And this project's also really suitable for beginners. So it's a nice small project you can hold in your hands. And I encourage you to just look in the back of your closet, look in your husband's dresser, look in your kids' tote bag or whatever, and find stuff that they're not using or that you want to use and they're never going to miss. So that is what I do. I really, my passion is to open the eyes of creative people who love textiles to the treasure trove that is used textiles, whether it's clothing that's been discarded or pieces of scraps left over from other projects or manufacturers' waste that's generated in the production of garments that we might have, that's for sale in whatever setting. From the Eileen Fisher project I did a few years ago that actually turned into this amazing whole new arm of their company. It's called Renew. If you want to look that up, Eileen Fisher is a amazing, like way ahead of the curve company and designer based in Irvington, New York. And I had the pleasure of developing a closed loop recycling program for them. So that is something definitely worth checking out. And that is kind of what I love to do, is just to like really make an impact. And I know that, making a little sun hat out of scrap material from the back of your closet might not feel like it's a big impact, but it is a way to open your eyes to and just show you an alternative to constant consumption. And it's really fun. So I feel like in our culture, and I think it's kind of maybe even like just a human thing that, we all feel like this sense of guilt for being human because we consume things, right? And we how do you live a day without using things that part of things get thrown away or discarded in some way. So this is a way to kind of balance that out. The average American throws away over 80 pounds of textile, used clothing a year, and only 15% of that actually is recycled through, thrift stores or the clothing bins that you see, where you can put your clothes, donate your clothing and shoes. And so my goal is to address that other 85% and see if we can't make an impact. So sun hats, let me just roll the ball over to you guys and let me know if, what do you, are you working on a sun hat right now? Is anybody out there? Was anybody who's watching now here with me yesterday? Have you had a chance to gather materials? What are you using for your sun hat? Let me see a few comments come up there and see if you haven't started yet. Are you interested? You can go back and watch a recording of yesterday's session and get some information from there and go forward. I'll be back on Monday and Tuesday of next week to complete the 4-day sessions. They're just about 20 minutes each. So if you have started your sun hat and you want to throw a picture up in the comments, we'd love to see it. If you're just kind of toying around with the idea and have any questions, please be sure to pop those right in the feed. I will do a little Q&A at the end of my teaching today that will, if you have questions. But I see that Ann Quinn has an embroidered linens from her great-grandmother to put into a hat form. That sounds amazing. That is like an exact example of like how amazing this process is, right? Like, I don't know, Ann, she's watching over on YouTube. Your grandmother's hand embroidered linens are so meaningful, right? And so precious and beautiful. And most of us who have cherished antiques like that from our family, from our ancestors, put them in a drawer and you never use them because God forbid you spill the red wine on them, right? So to do something that's you're gonna be handling that material that your grandma embroidered, like, I don't know, there's something like kind of magical about that. And then you're gonna make it into a hat and maybe you're gonna wear that hat, and there you're bringing your ancestry forward with you. You're able to celebrate that beauty and that skill and the time that your grandmother took. And rather than letting it waste away in a drawer and become maybe unusable over the years, to turn that into something that just has so much more meaning than something you're going to purchase at Target for whatever, $10. So Anne is wondering about what to use for sizing. And I'm wondering, Anne, are you talking about like the size of your hat or the sizing in the material to keep it firm? Maybe you can clarify that for me and we can go over that from, at the end. So I want to share with you a little bit about what I did. So this project, a lot of people who follow me love to follow me, but they're a little hesitant to jump in. And some people are not comfortable with sewing machines, which if you're comfortable with sewing machines, that's great. This is a pretty simple project, and all the hat patterns that I was sharing with you guys I have a document in the comments that you can access if you haven't already, where there are 4 free hat patterns you can download from the internet. So all 4 of those patterns come with instructions, and I recommend following those instructions. Actually, there's one that's from Liz Haywood, based in Australia, that was a little shy on the instructions. So I'm going to use her as an example to just show you how to get started in case you chose her pattern and you're just kind of a little bit at a loss. So this is what I've got here. This hat, this is a second hat, and I used the same fabric as the one I finished already. So I'm hand sewing this hat, and I'm hand sewing it just to show you how easy it is to do this project using just a needle and thread. So if you have a sewing machine, it's obviously much more, it's quicker. And if you're comfortable with your sewing machine, that is wonderful. But just to get people started who might not be comfortable easing, we're using a lot of curved edges, which require, a little bit more tricky stitching than just straight edges. So I am creating a hat that's going to be linen. This is a beautiful kind of coarse linen. Let me just show both cameras here. It's kind of like, it's almost like a denim jeans weight. So this came from a scrap project, an e-covery project I did, which is where I go into large volume textile waste generating companies and help them assess, like, what are you going to do with your scrap? How are you going to keep that from going to the landfill? And this project was done with a company called 22, which is a beautiful, very mindful company located in Connecticut, and they make wall coverings. They print fabric wall coverings and yardage that you can designers buy very high-end, beautiful fabric. So this is kind of their base material, or one of them that they use, this linen. And linen is really nice for summer because it's quite cool and it has a nice body to it. So this hat that I'm working on is, one side is going to be this linen, and you'll see the stitches. I have two cameras, so please just roll with me. If you're seeing the stitches, you're on one camera, and then here's the second camera. So the stitches are very simple. It's a whip stitch and a running stitch. And then this is going to be the other side of the hat, this African beautiful baticked print. So I have this one's pieced together so that the hat patterns all have 3 pieces. So we have the crown, which is the flat piece on top. And then we have the side, which is the band that kind of goes around your head. And then the brim, which is the part that kind of sticks over your eyes. So the first thing you do is you put your side pieces and your brim pieces together. So depending upon the pattern that you chose, you either have 2 or 4 pieces to go. I think it was 2, actually, maybe it was 2 or 1 piece. So these are the brim pieces, and you're just going to pin those right sides together across the short ends there, okay? And both sides, okay? And then you're going to stitch across there. And machine or hand sewing is totally fine. Either way is great. And the way I did that is I stitched straight across the seam with a running stitch, which I can show you guys. Again, I'm going to do this with 2 cameras. So close up here, this stitch here is a running stitch that I did. The first, in and out, just like that. This is the stitch we're looking at over here on the left side of your view there. And then, because that linen is very ravelly, I folded that down and I stitched it with what I call a ladder stitch next to it. So this is the cut edge here, the cut edge by my finger here. And it's got this stitch that just holds that down and it goes right over the cut edge. If you have a serger in your life, actually, you really don't need a serger for this. This is, you could just straight stitch that on a sewing machine, press it flat, and you wouldn't really need to worry about securing the stitch. But because this version is hand sewn, I just wanted to show you how to really secure that cut edge so you don't wind up with it coming apart. So that is how I do my seams together. So I did my side part, I did my brim parts together that way, and then I stitched that into the crown piece. And then I top stitched it, which is very fun to do. And I folded the crown into the side piece here so that I top stitched it down, and it makes a nice finish if you fold the crown piece down on the inside. Let me show you what that looks like. So here is the crown piece, and then you can see that the top stitch holds it kind of down onto that side. Okay, if you fold it the other way and try to make the side piece come up, it kind of creates, it almost looks kind of like muffiny on top, or like a chef's hat kind of billows out a bit, which I was not really digging the look of that. So then, yeah, top stitch. This is all sewn by hand with embroidery floss and a needle. So now I'm working on the other side here, and you can see I've got my brim pinned to the rest of the hat that I have constructed already, and I'm just doing my running stitch. Can you see the needle here? Let me just pull that through so it's easier to see. Okay, so there's my running stitches there. Okay, super simple. If you have a sewing machine, like I said, this is perfectly easy and fine to do using a sewing machine. I wanted to try both hand and machine sewing so I could really be sure that anyone who might be intimidated or not have a sewing machine accessible to them was able to participate in this fun course. So tonight's homework, excuse me, tonight's homework is to put your pieces together, right? So you're going to stitch your brims. You're going to wind up with two things that look like this. Okay, that's going to be your homework tonight. And use pins and take your time. And one thing I love about hand sewing hats is that they're so nice. You can fit the whole thing right in your hands. You don't have to have, I'm used to making blankets like the one behind me, or big garments that are kind of unwieldy and hard to kind of, if you can hold them on your lap, but then it gets quite hot this time of year. So this is a super nice way to just pass your time, make something really cool, and then be able to use it, right? This is the season for sun hats. So that is and I also want to say that these hat samples, I made out of all one fabric. And it's a little boring. If I had had a little bit more time and was playing around with more kind of textural changes, or you could make all three of these pieces. You could do your side pieces and your brim and your 3 different fabrics. You could make a patchwork fabric and then cut your pieces from that if you're working with little tiny scraps. Or if you like this hat I'm actually making for my husband, and he's very, well, I shouldn't say he's very plain. He doesn't really like clothing or accessories that stand out and make him very visible. So that is why I chose to make this out of the scrap material that I had enough of to make it all one fabric on either side. And the other cool thing about this particular hat and fabric is that this fabric, I believe, is from Ghana. And my husband has traveled to Africa. He's really enjoyed himself there. He's been to Mali. He's been to Botswana. And I don't think he's made it to Ghana, but I just figured that the African feel of this fabric would speak nicely to his experience there. And it's nice colors for a guy. It's kind of like a funky kind of bohemian pattern without being too loud. So that's another thing to consider, is you want to make sure that the hat you create is going to be really useful and just a nice thing for somebody to wear and enjoy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? Now is a great time, if you do have questions, to post them right up in the comments. I'm going to scroll down through here and see what I see for any questions that might have been popped in there. Mary F, still need to print patterns. No problem. You can get to that. It's not really hard to do. It's actually quite easy. And yep, we talked about Ann Quinn and her grandma's linens. So Cindy's going to use linen pants and denim shorts. That's great. And so you might be able to incorporate some of the details that make those cool. So maybe there's a pocket that would fit on the crown of your head, or maybe there's a belt loop that you can incorporate into the band that goes around. And actually, I was thinking, this is the sample hat that I made the other day, and I thought, it would be kind of cool to make like a little, a ribbon here, right, to add a little color. So if you had a belt loop from your shorts or your jeans, you could kind of stick a nice colorful accent through it and create kind of a nice band that way. Let's see, Christine Robbins, I am using upholstery and cotton fabric scraps given to me. I cut my pieces this morning. Great, I'm so happy to hear that. And Anna's wondering about sizing material. So you know what, I don't really know. I'm not sure what you need to create, like what is the desired outcome. And if you're still with us and you want to share that, we might be able to troubleshoot with you right here on social media. And Christine Robbins is wondering about pinning brims together, and so then pin sides together. And so yes, so the steps are going to be pin your brims together and sew the short ends, pin your sides together and sew the short ends, and then you're going to sew your sides to your crown piece, the round piece that goes in the middle. Sometimes they're oval depending on the pattern you chose. And then you're going to sew your brim piece to your side piece. So you're going to create two shapes that look like this for tomorrow. So you have quite a bit of sewing to do. And it's, you know, if you're hand sewing, it's going to take a couple hours. It's really peaceful, nice work. I think that you're going to have a whole bunch of fun. If you're stuck and you're having questions later on this evening, if you're waiting until the end of your workday or whatever to get started, post questions or comments or, you know, whatever in this feed to this, you know, the recordings will be on the platforms that you're watching on. So post your comments, questions, concerns there. And either I or someone who is also joining us with this community sun hat making extravaganza will be sure to help you out. Okay, so Anne wants to know about having a brim that's too floppy. That's a great question. So, and actually I have two solutions for that, Anne. One is you can use interfacing. If you have, you can buy fusible interfacing or non-fusible interfacing. If you're using linens, you might want to go with the non-fusible interfacing just because sometimes I feel like that the interfacing that's fusible has basically, if you will, a layer of, say, hot glue that kind of, you iron it down and then it sticks to your fabric. And sometimes that process creates kind of like a unnatural kind of papery look to the fabric. And I'm imagining that grandma's linens might be a little on the fine side. So the non-fusible might be a better choice if you're going with interfacing. I did not use any interfacing at all in this hat. And it's quite, you know, it's thin. I don't know if you guys probably aren't able to see this on the camera, but I can actually hold this up to the light and I can actually see through it. So it's quite thin, but it seems to hold its shape. Like it's not flopping in my face, right? It's got a nice deep crown, which I love because I like to wear my hair up and put a hat over. And this is the Merchant and Mills bucket hat. I did actually amend it a little bit, and I made the brim about 3/4 inch wider. The bucket hat pattern initially really didn't have a lot of shading for sun, more of kind of just an accessory. And then this hat is more of like this typical sun hat pattern, and it's actually not fitting great over my hair's up right now. And this is a little floppy. Although this fabric is quite heavy, I would like for it to be a little bit less floppy. So what I'm going to try with the hat that I'm working on right now is I cut an extra layer of this nice kind of denim weight canvasy linen, and I am going to stitch that between the layers. So that might actually be the best option for any kind of antique materials that you're using. You know, it's not going to have any kind of residual detriment or degradation of the fabric like that hot glue on the fusible interfacing might create. And if, you know, you probably have it already. If you have, if you're a sewist, textile artist, you might have fabric. It doesn't matter what it looks like because it's going to get sandwiched between layers, but you want something that has, you know, kind of a little bit of body, something that's a little crisp and, you know, will help kind of keep your hat from being very floppy. Okay, let me see. Any other questions over here? I'm just scrolling through. Let's see. Ooh, somebody's been recycling leather. That's another thing I want to say to you. So who is that? Let's Midnight Brown 712 has been recycling leather. You could make a leather hat using these patterns. You could, I mean, it sounds kind of funny, and I actually posted on, I have this awesome, this is a little non sequitur, but I have this awesome platform that I just launched in March. March 22nd was our first day, and it's called Stitcherhood. It's actually, its full name is Crispina's Stitcherhood Recycling Society. And it is this amazing, like I had no idea what I mean, can of worms sounds bad, but it's not bad. It's amazing. Like I thought I was going to have maybe a couple dozen people interested. There are over 1,300 members in this little community, and you are welcome to check it out. And I'll put a comment up. It's with the web address. It's called Stitcherhood, and it's at stitcherhood.crispina. And Stitcherhood's kind of a funny word that I made up, so I'll type it up there and I'll put it. So Stitcherhood is this. It's a textile recycling community for entrepreneurs, hobbyists, and industry professionals. And I posted a bunch of. We have actually this month we have a monthly challenge in Stitcherhood, and this month, in the month of July, we have a sun hat challenge. So this kind of ties into that. And if you guys are really into this and you make a sun hat that you feel is like you want to show it off to a bunch of people, go to stitcherhood.crispina.eco and you can post a picture of your finished sun hat and use, you want to tag it with a topic. It'll ask you what topic you want to use. And the topic is the challenge of the month. And you can win prizes. But when I was researching sun hats and just like wondering like what's going on out there, I found these really cool and super funny videos on YouTube where there's this kind of burly like cowboy dude from like, he certainly looks like he's from Texas. I did not research that much of it, but he makes super funky like cowboy hats with like the turned up brim out of cardboard boxes. And they're awesome. Like beer boxes, like, the cardboard that, 12 cases of beer come in, and they're just like amazing. I love them. And I thought, I love cardboard. I used to do a lot of, I still do a fair amount of creative projects using corrugated cardboard. But I thought you could totally make a cardboard hat. You could make a leather hat. So you can use these patterns. And I'm not sure, midnight brown 712. If you like, what about seam allowances? Like it depends on your construction technique with leather. Sometimes you might just want to like stitch them edge to edge. So you'd want to just reduce the size of your pattern by the seam allowance, and each of the patterns will tell you what seam allowance they are working with. So you can totally use that. And I'd love to see like alternative uses. The other thing you can do if you're recycling leather, furniture, like, leather couches, a lot, they get torn and then they get thrown away and they get thrown in the landfill because most people aren't going to take the time to fix something like that. But there's a lot of valuable leather on those, especially a couch. So that might be a good place to source leather if you haven't already thought of that. So let's see, that's awesome. And if you run into any questions, Midnight Brown, that you think that this community of people could help you with, we would love to hear more about your process. And I think that, let's see, that sounds good. I'm guessing you cut the interfacing cloth 1/4 inch smaller than the outer parts. Yeah, when you're cutting your interfacing or that layer that you might add to your rim, if you want to kind of bulk it up a little bit, yeah, I look at the pattern. Sometimes the patterns won't list the size of the seam allowance, but I believe like the one of the 4 patterns that I tried, the one that had the least amount of information was the one from, I think it's actually, yeah, it's Liz Haywood. I don't think she listed her seam allowance, but I would go with like, yeah, 1/4 inch, 5/8, maybe a centimeter. I would just make it consistent around whatever you're cutting. And then, also use that when you're sewing. So as long as it's the same when you're sewing, and then, if you trim off that interfacing piece, you're going to trim around the perimeter, whatever the seam allowance is that you actually used for stitching, it should work just perfectly. So thank you everyone for your time today. It's we're running a little over. I like to try to keep these to 20 minutes, so not to take too much of your time, but I'll be back again on Monday. So spend the weekend if you'd like to. If you haven't already watched day number 1, it's in the feed of whatever platform you're watching on now. You might have to scroll back or search around for it a little bit. Watch that. Get your materials together, cut your pieces out, get them stitched together, and I will catch you on Monday for day number 3. Have a great weekend out there, everybody, and thank you for being awesome out there.